Here we are again, bumper round 3. I'm kind of obsessively determined, I think I might say, to get this bumper fixed. It was free and I don't want to buy another one. They're really expensive. Have you guys looked online at what a replacement bumper for one of these Firebirds costs? It's stupid. So I have one. Let's see if we can get it fixed. Somebody suggested using some epoxy product. I couldn't find it other than like on Amazon. It was going to take like a month to get it. So much for 2-day shipping, right? So I went driving around today, going around town, checking out the various parts stores, seeing what they had that might work, talking to some people. And I found something from, you know, for those of us backyard hacks, something from Old Reliable. JBWeld. They actually have an AutoWeld designed for dashboards, trim, bumpers, and grills. All right, so we're gonna give this a try. Maybe it's just this simple. We just glue it back together. Like, you know, I think I used the Occam's razor analogy in a previous video that sometimes, I think it was the brakes, where sometimes the simplest solution is the right solution. Well, we'll find out. All right, so we've got it all strapped up with tape, positioned so that crack is nice and tight together, or as tight as I can get it probably. Cleaned it all up, got all the old, you know, stuff I tried last time, all the little plastic peeled off. It just came off again in one big stupid chunk, so it didn't stick at all. So I scuffed this up a little bit with some sandpaper just by hand, cleaned it with some degreaser, and so it's about as clean as it's gonna get. And so we'll see if we can use this stuff here. So it's this JBWeld AutoWeld. It's sets in 15 minutes, it's sandable in 30. It comes with its own mixing tube, so as you squeeze it out, it just already pre-mixes it. This is pretty cool stuff. It actually comes, the old JBWeld, it came in those 2 little tubes. You had to mix it by hand. It was kind of messy. They still have that, but this is super convenient. This has a reusable cap. So you're just gonna pop this cap off, and that'll open up the 2 cylinders, and you can squeeze out together, kind of like an epoxy you might get at Home Depot or whatever. And then it has this mixing cap, which is pretty slick. As the stuff comes through, it auto mixes. You just cut the tip to whatever size bead you want. I'm going to cut it with a pretty wide bead. This is probably not reusable. I know that's, again, another Captain Obvious statement. But because this is going to have a bunch of stuff in it and it's going to dry up. But this is reusable. So you just have to get more of these if you ever want to do it again. Or you could just squeeze it out and mix it with like a toothpick or putty knife or something like that, which is usually what I do. But I'm going to give this a shot. All right, I'm going to start over here on a table, just to learn what the heck I'm doing. So obviously I can't waste too much time. Oh, I need a knife for that, because that's going to set up on me. Let's see, what can I mix it with? Let's mix it with this chunk of wire. That'll work. So I'm not going to use this just yet, because I want to save that for when I really want to do the things. So this, I'm just going to pop this cap open. It just pops off. Cool. Okay, put the cap back on. We'll just kind of mix this up. And then we'll just apply on our crack. So all this is a 2-part deal. It's very similar to any other kind of epoxy. This is really a terrible mixing stick, but it'll do for now. So it's thin. That's one thing I'm noticing too, gonna spread out kind of thin. So I'm just gonna leave that sit. It says it takes 15 minutes to set. So we'll give it 15 minutes and see what happens. All right, so it's been about 15. And it says it sets in 15 minutes. It's tacky, but it's not runny, and I can't really move it, but it isn't hard. So it says it's fully cures in 30 minutes. So here's we are at about 15. So we'll pause here again. We'll give it another 15 and see what she looks like then. Well, it's been a half hour. It's actually been, I don't know why. Why does everybody look at their wrist when they want to figure out what time it is when they don't even have a watch on. Anyway, it's been about 40 minutes. It's not hard. It's still kind of pliable and tacky. I can't tell if it's supposed to be because it's going to have some flex to it given that it's connecting to flexible parts. But it'll still stick because it doesn't move. It just doesn't get real hard. I don't know. We're going to give it a whirl. So I'm not going to worry about the 15-minute thing. I'll put it on the bumper and just give it the full 30. In fact, I'll probably give it closer to an hour. It's a little humid today. And that might add, sometimes that humidity adds to curing time. Should be interesting. See how it goes. All right, kids. There goes nothing. Trying to reach around these. I feel like Clark Griswold here, trying to reach around the ladder. Give us some width, make sure we got plenty. Covering up the cracks. All right. We'll back that up so it stops leaking out the end. Now I have the other side to do, but I only have one of these applicators. So I don't know how to do it right now because I want to see how this works. So I may run back out and see if I can pick up another couple of these applicators and see if you can buy them separately. I assume you can. I actually don't know. And but we're gonna let that set. Fingers crossed. Well, it actually left it about an hour now, and it still feels pliable. It says in 30 minutes it's both sandable and paintable, and I would have my doubts about the sandable part. Like I feel like that would be really kind of gummed up. It still feels like it's a little tacky, but at the same time it's not. Like I can run my finger around it and nothing happens. So, well, see, I can put fingerprints in it still though. Now they put it on pretty thick. So normally epoxy would be, you would put it in the seam, right, and then mush it together, and it would just sort of mush out, versus like cake it on. And I think that might have something to do with why it's still rather tacky. So I'm actually gonna, I think I'm still gonna leave it. I'm gonna mess with it too much. I'm gonna let it dry. At this point, it's kind of late in the day. I'm probably just gonna let it dry overnight and come back and check it in the morning. But I'll say this, like just moving this around, when I did the plastic welding before, I could see the crack moving ever so slightly, independent of the melted plastic or the new plastic. And this I don't. When I move, it's really hard. I'm sure this is so tiny, you're never gonna see this on camera, but when I move these two pieces independently, I can see where the crack is on the outside, but on the inside, that entire black, because of the black shiny dot right here, that entire black piece is flexing. It's not coming loose. It's moving together like the plastic would. So I think it's at least better. I don't know if it's working, but I think it's at least better. I think I'm still, everything's taped up. I'm gonna leave it all taped. I'm gonna leave it sit. So by tomorrow morning, it will have been 18 hours or so. Actually, really probably tomorrow's Sunday. So by the time I go home from church tomorrow, it's gonna be, it'll be pretty close to the same time I started this today. So it'll be about 24 hours and we'll take the tape off and we'll see what happens. Sunday afternoon. So it's been almost 24 hours. I did this about 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon yesterday. And it's pretty hard now. Not tacky at all. So, moment of truth. Let's peel at least this piece off because that was the one that was holding it mostly close together. Yeah, that's working. Sweet. All right. All that complicated plastic welding and like $15 in epoxy was what I really needed. I guess we'll go do the other side now. Taped up here, and this doesn't go, I I'm just not able to get this all the way together, but I actually think that's probably okay because I really want to put this stuff down in that crack. So I'm going to try just fill that gap. We'll see how that goes. There's something oddly satisfying about watching that mix on the fly. Does that make me weird? Don't answer that. Oh, I was going to tape the other side. And I forgot. So the stuff doesn't leak all the way through like it is. All right, hold on a second. Where's my metal tape at? Actually, I think I'll just use painter's tape because I'm not heating this. This isn't mixed as good as it was before. These are different. These are like a third-party, tips, because the kit only came with one tip, and the tip is a one-time use deal. So I bought these tips off Amazon, and doesn't seem to be mixing quite as good as it did before. I don't think, anyway. I also remember now I did not clean this before I put this on, so that's not good. Yeah, see how it's, as I kind of mix it by hand here, it's turning more black than gray. That's what I really want. So I'm not sure that these tips are mixing all that good. Okay. Well, hopefully that sticks. I forgot to clean it first. I got kind of excited that it was working and got ahead of myself. And I forgot to wipe that down. It has been washed before, but you can see it's not clean, right? So hopefully it sticks. But we're in it now, so do the same thing. I'll let this dry for a couple hours and see where we stand. Get you a little closer here, but I don't know what you'll be able to see. But you can see there's a lot of gray here. Gray lines here, there's a gray line right there. And then when I put this in, it was very runny and it ran down this line. And it did not do that on the other side. So it was too runny. It was not mixed good enough. And you can see a lot of gray in here. And in fact, see if I can get something I can poke that with so I don't get it all over my fingers. Oh, let's use this razor blade because it's dull and needs to be replaced anyway. This is pretty mushy still. Like what inside here is still wet. You can see that on there. So it's not even drying. And it peels up awfully easy. See how, let's get rid of that. See how gooey that is still? So I think the issue is it didn't get mixed right. So these new aftermarket tips, they don't work as good as the original one. Well, I don't know. I'll put a link down for them. If nothing else, maybe find different ones because I don't think they work all that well. They might work for different stuff. Like I don't know if they got good reviews, but I don't know if they just don't work with this particular blend of stuff very well. So unfortunately, it's kind of in this weird mode where it's there, but it's not working, but it's not removable. It's working good enough to stick. You know, I don't know what to do with it now, but I did take the tape off across the top here and it did crack right here, or re-crack right there. But the rest of it seems to be kind of holding. And this won't be how it sits, right? Like in the car. It's going to be flipped this way, or on the car, not in the car. It's going to be flipped this way. So these outside edges aren't going to be like these big wings that are hanging off, pulling this way. They're going to be kind of pulling like, you know, twisting kind of motion. and this is on the bottom, and so this part up here was going to get attached. So this just sort of dangles. So all this really has to protect or hold against is the force of this hanging down, not this whole half of the thing. So I think I'm going to leave it as is and do what I said before and grind a little channel on the front side, on the outside edge, and mix some up by hand and fill it in almost like body filler. And so I make sure it's good and mixed, and I think that will hold much better. So then it kind of gives it something to bind to. All right, let's take this tape off here. This is holding together pretty well. So this can be filled with some body filler. This has got to be filled anyway, because this is pretty, I tried to clean this up and made it worse. So this is very, very wavy now from the cuts I put in it with sandpaper that was too aggressive. So I'm going to have to body fill this with some flexible filler anyway. But this is holding up really well, and I'm pretty happy with it. But this side, a little less so. It cracked here, but it didn't crack all the way through. And like I said earlier, when this was sitting upright, well, whatever, it was sitting on its nose, and these edges out here they're pretty heavy, and so it's pulling pretty hard on that crack. Supported it that way just because it was the easiest way to keep it from just like flopping all over the place, because it's like stupid flexible. But I don't think that was the best way to do it in hindsight. And I think it would have been better to have probably put it on this side down. The other thing I shouldn't have done was use painter's tape as the backing for that epoxy stuff, because it soaked into the tape. So I peeled this tape off and it left all this behind, and it just will not come off. And I don't want to take a razor blade to it because this is plastic. Although I got to fill it anyway. You can see the paint's chipping off. This thing's a mess. This is going to be an interesting paint job. So I might take some sandpaper and see if I can sand that off. And then I'm going to run that little die grind bit down here and create a little channel and fill that and see if it works a little better. I try to use this die grinder, which is what I used on the other side, and it didn't work so well. But use it with one of these like Scotch-Brite kind of pads instead, scouring pads, see if I can just get that tape off. All right, well that worked pretty well, actually. I was surprised. I didn't think that was gonna work. So yeah, you can see a little bit here. There's this crack right here where it started to pull away. So I'm just gonna try to get it, create a little channel. Not very deep, I'm just using a very, 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 very small die grinding head there. And just grind a little plastic and some of that epoxy out of there and see if we can get some, fill that back in. So yeah, so very, very thin, very shallow, I should say. So now we'll get something to mix up this stuff on. All right, so I'll just squeeze some out here. So I'm kind of just gonna mix this. Let's use a razor blade and just kind of mix it up like a paddle of sorts. Not really like stirring it, more as I am, I guess, kneading it a little bit. I'm just trying to get it where I get rid of all the gray. There we go. Okay. Let's take some. Kind of dab it in there. I don't know if I'm doing this right at all, but I know I don't want too much on there, because the more on there, the more I have to take off. I feel like I'm making a bigger mess here than I have to, but it's really making a bigger mess in here than I want to. So I tried to see if I could feather it in with a razor blade, but that wasn't working, and I was pretty sure I was going to cut my hand. So this is supposed to be sandable, so I'm going to let this dry and cure up, and then we'll come across it with some sanding, see if we can level it off. There's There's some imperfections in this anyway that's going to have to get, like I said, filled with body filler. So probably this is going to get all covered up and sanded with body filler anyway, and we'll feather it out then. But I just want to make sure that I've got enough rigidity on the outside to hold it. We're a full day later. So this has been a multi-day process. I'm not sure it would really take this long. I put a fan blowing on this side and it hardened up much better. It was a little tacky before. And that looks good. I'm really happy. I mean, it doesn't look good. It looks terrible, but it worked good. I'm happy with that. That has got a little bit of a dip to it, which was on purpose. So there's some texture here. So it's not smooth, but when I fill this with some body filler, some of that flexible filler, that'll smooth over and it'll all kind of disappear. This side, similar story. This side I had done first, I'm going to flip the other way. And this part here that leaked through is still a little tacky. And it's been sitting for 3 days. So I'm going to move the fan over to this side and probably help dry that out. But generally though, this is holding and I'm really happy with it. So I think I'm going to call this done. Like I said, I'm going to call this done. I mean, it's not done, right? It still looks like crap, but it's still held together, right? So that's good enough for now. Like I said, I'm going to have to do some body filler on it. I find some flexible. I don't have any of the flexible body filler like you'd use on this kind of stuff. I just have regular Bondo type body filler. I think it's probably going to be too rigid for this and it's going to crack. So I want to get some flexible stuff and then get this cleaned up and sanded and primed and get it ready for paint. For all you painter guys out there, tell me give me some suggestions if you've got any on what kind of filler to use, whether to do this on the car or off. I think I want to do it on the car. This is so flexible, like getting it back on the car and then with that foam insert inside of it to keep it more rigid. It's not really rigid, but more rigid. Like it gives it a little more stability to it. And I think it'll be easier for me when it comes to actually sanding and painting and all that. I think that's probably what I'll do. But if you guys have any suggestions on that or any input, I'd love to hear your feedback. Overall though, I actually this was really super easy, relatively anyway, compared to the 2 different types of welding processes I tried. I actually think those processes can work. I think I said in the review on the original gun tool that I thought the tool itself was the idea of the tool is good, but that particular tool wasn't very good. And now I'm kind of wondering if it was this that was the problem and not the tool, and the tool itself is fine. So somewhere down the road, I'll have another plastic thing to fix and we'll try it again and we'll see if it works better the second time around. The soldering iron style, I actually think that actually works really good. I have seen people use that before with great success. I think that would work really good, again, if it was a different material, or maybe if I had a different plastic material that I was welding in, like that plastic stock. I mean, maybe there's a chemical compound between these two where they don't bond together. That's a lot of science and above my head, so I'm not even going to try. In the end, just gluing it, right? Like old reliable, just JBWeld it. That's what we say all the time. And sure enough, just JBWeld it, and that worked fine. Now, I'll say this. It did take a long time to dry. The drying time on the card said 15 to 30 minutes. I said earlier, I think that probably the intent is you're going to put it in 2 pieces you're going to glue together versus cake on, like I did, that material. And so that did extend its drying time. But this took a long time to dry. I mean, this was we're talking 4 days before it was finally dry. And actually one spot over here is still a little tacky. I probably did it wrong, to be honest. That's probably, I didn't use the product the way it was designed to be used, and that probably is why it's taking so long to dry. I mean, I even had time to go get the barbershop visit in, and I don't usually have that kind of time. So there was a lot of hurry up and waiting with this product, but it did work. Just if you do it the way I did it, you might want to allocate some dry time. Anyway, I think we're done here. Hope you enjoyed that. Appreciate you watching. Hit the like and subscribe and hit the bell, because I'm going to start working on the rest of this, and you might want to watch me screw up a paint job. That'd be fun. Appreciate you guys very much, and we'll see you next time.